I need to test my microphone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I don't hear Commissioner Gates. He's on mute. Commissioner, it's this new technology. You have to press that button on the left side down at the bottom. I'm glad I'm not the only one not wearing a tie. I was all worried.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Okay.
Looks like we have a quorum. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Okay, can we go ahead and have a roll call for the Florida Ethics Commission?
Commissioner Ankers, Commissioner Carvajal,
Present.
Commissioner
Can't hear
Cummings, Commissioner Gates,
Hear you. Cannot hear you.
I heard him before.
how about now?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Can you hear me?
No.
Very vaguely.
Chair Lesnoff, you can't hear Diana or Commissioner Gates.
I can only hear very faintly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you loud and clear.
Well, I can only hear you very faintly, Diana.
All right.
And I
Now, how
cannot
about
hear
now?
the chair or Willie.
Okay. How about now? All right. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm calling
Commissioner,
Carrie.
Commissioner Gates,
yes.
Commissioner Gilzine,
Present.
Commissioner
Carrie.
Grant,
Carrie.
Commissioner Lesnoff, Commissioner Meggs, and Commissioner Waldman.
Here,
All right. We have a quorum
Is
present.
everybody's audio not working except for mine?
We can hear you loud and clear over the feed right now. So yes, I think is it your speaker?
Yeah, I can't hear anyone. Yeah. Let me try my iPad.
Okay,
'Cause- Okay, hold please, and I
Ready.
apologize.
I didn't hear Commissioner Meggs before. I know he was on mute now, but Commissioner Meggs, could you unmute and just, because I didn't hear you at all. Does he not hear me? Commissioner Meggs, can you hear me?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
you can, but you're echoing. You're very echoing.
Okay.
Might be able, if you turn the sound off on your computer and then leave it up on the iPad, perhaps that will cure that feedback issue.
I think I'll just discontinue the computer.
You are gone, Joanne, but not forgotten.
Madam Chair, you're muted on the iPad.
Okay, I think maybe we've got it now. All right, I apologize for all that. I'm still Zoom naive, not having a real job aside from this very important voluntary position. Can we have a roll call to call to order the Florida Ethics Commission?
All right, Commissioner Ankers, Commissioner Carvajal,
Present.
Commissioner Cummings, Commissioner Gates,
Yes.
Commissioner Gilzine,
Here.
Commissioner Grant, Commissioner Lesnoff,
Here.
Commissioner Meggs. He's here. Commissioner Waldman.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum present.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, I apologize for missing our last meeting, but I did watch it in its entirety and observe the discussion regarding the budget.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We have a sound issue with Commissioner Meggs. Could we pause momentarily?
Certainly,
Thank you. I apologize.
no worries. Like we've now lost him in his entirety. Come back.
I've been lost for a long time.
Okay, glad to have you here in your entirety. So anyway, as I was saying, I watched our last meeting and took special note of your discussion on the budget. And first to tell you that I could not agree more with commissioners that it is important that the commission approve any legislative budget and essentially approve the commission's budget. I do know that there are probably some historic reasons why this hasn't occurred in the past. However, I believe all of those can and should be overcome. I know Carrie has expressed that typically she's given a short time frame from receiving directions on what to submit downtown and actually submitting that request downtown. I know a lot of you are familiar with how typical budget requests proceed, but the Ethics Commission budget operates a little differently. Because the Ethics Commission is housed within the Florida legislature, it is not subject to the executive laws and executive and judicial branch laws regarding the submission of LBRs and those timeframes. So it does not go through the more belabored process of making a budget request. So what Carrie deals with is internal requests from the House and Senate to submit information. And so she's on a different time schedule, and sometimes that's pretty truncated. Having said that, I still think that we do need to approve whatever it is we submit, and that we need to find a process to do that. Zoom works fine for me. Also, unlike typical agency budgets, the Commission on Ethics budget has very broad categories. In fact, there is essentially only one, and that is a lump sum category for $2.6 million in general revenue. There are three other very small categories, but they are almost technical or for a very limited purpose. One is the transfer to administrative services of a very small amount of almost $60,000. risk management line, and a line for lobbyist registration, which comes out of a separate trust fund that is also very limited at $182,000. And Carrie's prepared to go over those smaller appropriations as well. But for the typical appropriations where there is flexibility, the commission actually has very broad flexibility because it is single lump sum appropriation. Carrie and folks from the House and Senate Speaker's office and the President's office do refine the budget at a more detailed level, but legally our authority is very broad within that lump sum category of $2.6 million. So I'm hoping today that Carrie can give us an overview of what it is that what categories we currently are appropriated in, what she sees coming up as potential needs for the upcoming year. And then if we wish, we can take a vote conceptually on whether we want to increase our budget for a particular need, decrease our budget if we find that there are things that are unnecessary, or have what is a continuation budget, which is another reason why I think typically the commission has historically not voted on a budget, because for so long there have been continuation budgets for the commission. I know when I was not the chair last year and the preceding year, I either publicly or privately had asked, what type of budget are we submitting? And it has always been a continuation budget. Therefore, I didn't have much concern. But I do think moving forward, it's important that commissioners review and submit a budget consistent with their wishes. With that, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Carrie to present where we are now and where she recommends we may need to be. Carrie, you're on.
All right, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Chair Lesnoff might have stolen some of my thunder with her introduction, and I'm thankful for that. Briefly, we are administratively housed in the legislature. Ultimately, I will receive instruction as to what I am to submit to the House and Senate. I would imagine that will come down the pike soon, since it's a January session. Historically, the commission has received the appropriation that it has sought from the legislature. We have not had to lobby the legislature specifically relating to our budget requests. We get that lump sum appropriation for the commission and the executive branch lobbyist trust funds. For today's workshop, I've provided you with information related to the current budget. And as I walk through that, I'll mention my recommendations for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 based on the information I currently have and anticipated agency needs. Once I have those instructions for the budget request, I'll be in communication with the chair, and I will incorporate the feedback and direction you provide today to finalize the commission's request to the legislature. So turning to the Commission on Ethics, you have that 4-year fact sheet. The legislature often asks us for a 3-year look in terms of the fact sheet. When you're looking at that sheet, you'll see the 3 categories that we take that lump sum and place money into those categories. We have salaries, OPS, and expense category. There's also carry forward monies. Those carry forward dollars are unspent funds from previous budget years, and we are able to access those funds for non-recurring, often unanticipated one-time needs. And we send down special requests to use carry forward dollars. So when we go through the salaries aspect of the budget, obviously that is always the commission's largest portion of the budget for your professional staff. We have with that a personnel plan that encompasses monies that might be used for salary compression or addressing minimum wage like we've had to do. Also, with leave payouts when people leave the office, that personnel plan allows us some flexibility to address those needs, and I do try to anticipate those things. Incidentally, we recently, I was notified we'd be receiving $11,975 in administrative funds for salaries to work with the minimum wage adjustments that we needed to address. In the coming fiscal year for 22-23, barring any additional responsibilities or positions to be added on a permanent basis, I would anticipate that we can continue to fund all of the positions that we need and the work of the commission with the existing salaries budget. It was originally $1,869,110 with the addition of the $11,975. Check my math, but I believe that runs out to $1,880. $1,880,905 for the salaries budget. Moving on, in the operating budget for the commission, we have the other personal services category of the budget, which are your contracts. Also included in your materials was a list of the commission's contracts that you'll see reflected throughout the budget, outlining our largest contracts, which are of course our lease, and the Attorney General contract, which you previously approved, as well as our contract with West. The West Publishing is in three parts. We have our West Library that gives us any books that we might need. We have the West Publishing, or the CLEAR, which is what our investigators use in terms of background checks when they need to find people. We often do that in terms of collections and investigations. And then the legal research aspect of West is the largest chunk of that. We're in the last year of that contract right now, and we are awaiting information from West as to what the new numbers will be for fiscal year 22-23. But I have made an assumption of a 5% escalation in that contract. So that number could change. I've given my best estimate on that. Within the OPS category is that Attorney General contract for our advocates who prosecute our cases. That is the largest part of that budget. In addition to that, we have $47,500 allotted for additional legal services. This would be there in case the commission were to get sued. Also, from time to time, we do need to get a special advocate to contract with the commission when our advocates have a conflict and cannot represent the state in the matters that are before the commission. Reflected in that category as well are legal advertisements for meeting notices, our alarm security, records management, etc. Smaller amounts there. Moving on to expenses, you'll again see some of these contracts that I mentioned to you. In the current fiscal year, we have a pretty large item in there for postage. Obviously, in 2022-2023, when we are fully launched into e-filing with both Form 1s and Form 6s, that number is going to dial down. I'll probably take it down to about $6,500. The financial disclosure, mailing, printing, shipping of forms, including certified mail notices to filers who do not file as of July 30th. That process itself comes in at around $22,000 each year. We've been able to cut costs over time with our printing because we have another state agency that helps us print our forms instead of having to ship those out. And so that realizes a savings. We have our Suncom data circuits, that's our connectivity fee for our offices that you will see there. Significantly, you will note that the travel budget sits close to $50,000. That travel budget is, of course, for commissioners to travel to commission meetings, which averages, give or take, about $2,500 a meeting, 8 meetings a year. The rest of that travel, of course, is for our investigators to travel on investigations. When members of your staff travel to conduct training, those travel costs are paid by the commission, but then often reimbursed to the commission itself for the costs incurred to conduct the training. We have our supplies and our expenses. I'm hoping this year, with your approval, I want to try to have an AED on premises here in the office. So I'd like to add that, and that'll come in at about $3,500. And we have our software licenses. That is our Alchemy meeting database that we use for when you all come to meetings and how we manage our electronic documents. Our rent for the 22-23 fiscal year is set to be $97,785. And the rest of the equipment in there, postage, our upcoming lease on a new copier scanner, which is the workhorse for the commission, which is currently caught up in supply chain issues, so has not yet arrived. And then, of course, under special category, we have the Division of Administrative Hearings. I've contacted them, and their request for the commission in the 22-23 fiscal year will come in at $66,884, if that is what the legislature decides to approve. So we have some anticipated savings with the financial disclosure hard costs for managing the paper process will start to be realized in 22-23 fiscal year. And so with those decreases, along with modest increases for costs related to licensing and so forth, I do anticipate that we would once again be working with a continuation budget with expenses, unless throughout this workshop you all decide otherwise and direct me to do something different. That brings us to carry forward and e-filing. We don't know what we don't know when it comes to the Form 1 launch. What we do know is that there will be 22,529 additional filers filing with the commission who, through the electronic filing process, who had never filed with us before. I anticipate that we will seek to get help in the communications arena to make sure that we are communicating early and often with those filers, with the supervisors of elections and qualifying officers, where all of the folks who are qualifying for office will also be using the e-filing system. We might need additional telephones, additional equipment to handle the influx during that filing season. My guess is between March and September, things are going to be pretty busy around here. Our needs will be better understood as we move through the much smaller Form 6 launch that will occur this January, and that we'll talk about a little bit at our next commission meeting. In addition to that, I do anticipate needing to augment staff on a temporary basis for the launch of e-filing. Contemplating it right now, I would think potentially for a matter of 6 months during the busy period to give us an opportunity to train those folks appropriately, integrate them here at the commission in terms of what we anticipate the needs will be for filers, and work through all the way through the filing period through that September deadline. What I did for this current fiscal year and what I would like to do for 22-23 is to ask the legislature for some flexibility in how we use our carry forward dollars. to allow us to even use those for some temporary part-time positions, possibly some full-time positions during that filing period. And as we better understand how our workload is shifting and how our duties are shifting and what our specific needs are, then if we find that we need to staff up on a permanent basis with a position or few, then we would convert that into the salaries part of our budget and seek that through the budgeting process for a permanent position. And so with that, I will open it up to questions and comments on that portion of it, or I can continue on to talk a little bit about the Executive Branch Lobbyist Trust Fund.
Carrie, if you would, if you'd continue with your presentation, and then if with the commission's permission, I think there's a way we can structure our discussion to achieve the goal of having decisions today. So if you'd go ahead and talk briefly about the trust fund portion of the budget.
Thank you. As you all know, the commission is also in charge of the Executive Branch Lobbyist Registration Office. That is funded via the Executive Branch Lobbyist Trust Fund. You also have a 4-year fact sheet reflecting the operations of the Lobbyist Registration Office. That office is co-located with the Legislative Branch Lobbyist Registration Office for the convenience of lobbyists, and it has been that way, I think, since its inception. We have 1 employee. We used to have 2. Once that office went to electronic registration and electronic compensation reporting, it gradually came down to 1 position. Our lobbyist registrar is Karen Murphy-Bunton, and she's been a wonderful addition to the commission staff. She provides very capable assistance to all of the lobbyists in the state. We split our costs with the Legislative Lobbyist Office. The breakout is based on the split of lobbyists, if you will, the number of lobbyists. We pay 48% of the costs for that office located in the Pepper Building. The funding for the trust fund comes from the lobbyist registration fee, which is $25 per principal. And it's important to note that late compensation reports result in a $50 a day fine for each day late. And again, that registration is done electronically. We currently, as of September of 2021, there are 1,453 registered lobbyists. There are 4,094 principals. And again, that registration fee is $25 per principal. Penalties collected in 2020 for lobbyist registration was $3,650. So we do a good job there. Under the OPS category of that budget, the largest line item would be the amount for accounting services. That is monies utilized for lobbyist audits. Those are those random annual audits. They are selected randomly each year. There are auditing guidelines that were set forth by the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee. And we really have no way to predict necessarily what those costs might be. It is dependent on which lobbying firms are randomly selected for the audits. We select 3% of lobbying firms for audits, so that usually hits somewhere between 12 to 14 lobbying firms who are audited each year. And of course, the costs are dependent on how large of an organization happens to get tapped for that audit. I can tell you that the average over the last number of years for those costs, it's gone up and down, but it's been around $59,000. So I would suggest that we increase the amount under OPS for accounting services to about $59,000. If it winds up being more in fiscal year 22-23, there are carry forward dollars in that trust fund that we would utilize to cover that. There are credit card fees. We do allow lobbyists to pay their fines and registrations via credit card, and there are associated fees with that. So there is a line item for that. And then under expenses, the largest expense is rent for that small space down at the Pepper Building. And our split for that has recently gone up. It's $7,191 currently. And should DMS increase that rent amount, we would receive, it's my understanding, administered funds for that purpose. Under special category, general liability amount of insurance is not set by me. That I'm told what that is, and it gets plugged into the budget. Additionally, you'll notice some bolded language and amounts listed at the bottom of that operating budget. Those amounts are also placed in there by the Office of Legislative Services Accounting Office when they do their magic that they do with numbers, and they provide that information at the end of the budget once it's been submitted. And so that will wrap it up. I don't anticipate an increase in the executive branch budget, with the exception of with your approval of the accounting and auditing services increase. So thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. What I'd like to do is first off, see if any members have questions about what is our current operating budget. Then once those are answered, we can move into a discussion of whether the commission would like to consider any reductions to offer to the legislature regarding our budget, or any increases, or whether we want to proceed with a continuation budget carrying for with the substantial carry forward that we have, and to maintain some flexibility with respect to that carry forward. So at this point, I will open it up if there are questions regarding our current anticipated operating budget for fiscal year 22-23 as Carrie presented.
Madam Chair, this is Tony.
You're recognized.
Thank you. I think that in prior years, we've discussed that all the electronic and programming portions of the electronic filing system is through DMS. Is that correct, Ms. Stillman?
Through the chair, Commissioner Carvajal, your recollection is correct in that those funds do not come from the commission's budget. The funding for the building of the electronic filing system that we are very excited about comes from the Office of Legislative Information Technology Services and their carry forward budget, and that is overseen by Olitz and the House and Senate.
And through the chair, if you don't mind a follow-up, I think the main question that comes from that is, I think from all the reports that you have provided is there's a good relationship. There is no reason to suspect that they would not handle quickly or judiciously glitches or challenges as they come up. But should we need to respond quickly, it seems like, well, first, I'm not even sure that we have the technical ability to do that, but the carry forward is where I'm going forward. If we had to respond quickly and DMS was not able to respond as quickly, do we have the ability to meet the needs given our legislative mandates of having the system roll out well?
Through the chair, it's actually, it would not be DMS, it would be the Florida legislature, and the leadership in the House and Senate have been, I think, very supportive of this project. And I do believe that I have a really good relationship with the administration in both the House and the Senate, as well as the head of IT in the House and Senate. And so I have every reason to believe that they would be quick to respond to any concerns that might come up with that process.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. Are there any other questions regarding Ms. Stillman's presentation or the current year or proposed 22-23 budget?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Gates, you're recognized.
Thank you. To follow up on Commissioner Carvajal's question, and perhaps, Madam Chair, you could help with this as well because of your vast experience and understanding of the process. Given the example that Commissioner Carvajal gave of a unanticipated urgent need for, say, IT expenditures after the legislature is out of session, are you saying that we have currently the legal flexibility to dip into carry forward funds? Or are you saying that we would make an informal notification to the leadership of both houses? Or are you saying we have to go through the LBC?
Carrie, you're recognized unless you want. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, you likely know that process better than I do. I know it from an outsider perspective in that I would make some calls to House and Senate administration. They would let me know what it is they would need from me to effectuate that process. And at this point, I will turn it on over to our chair.
Commissioner Gates, because of the authority of carry forward, there would be no LBC or formal process. It would simply be an informal process that Carrie would go through with the leadership of the House and Senate. There would be no action required by the full bodies to access those carry forward funds, of which we would believe would not be ours anyway. But if in some strange event that needed to be the solution, that could happen as well.
Madam Chair.
You're recognized, yes.
Thank you. So I gather then in further answer to Commissioner Carvajal's question, there is what you would consider in maximum flexibility to use carry forward funds, so long as we kept the leadership appraised and responded to any questions they had. So let me ask this question. Tell me if it's appropriate now or later. It seems to me that this is, first of all, it's a very good budget. I appreciate the work that's been done on it. The budget does obviously have to make certain assumptions about workload. And, the budgetary, quasi-budgetary concern that I've had, others have had on the commission is that it's taken a long time to get some cases before us. And the reason given to me has been because we've had investigators out, people have been sick, relatives have been ill, people have left, and hard to recruit somebody. And so it's been hard to kind of keep a full staff working all the time. And with the size staff we have, it happens that, on any given day of the week, somebody's out for some reason. And given the workload that we have, the fact that I'm so grateful to Carrie that she's begun to catch up with some of the older cases, as evidenced by the last meeting. But there's still a lot of old cases out there. I realize that investigations take as long as they take, but we are going to be seeing some additional workload consequent to the implementation of Amendment 12. In my conversations with Senate leadership this past week, I believe our workload will increase based on where at least some in the legislature, in the leadership, think that implementation will go. So my question is this: do we need, Madam Chair and Carrie, to provide for flexibility for the executive director, with approval of the chair, to add additional investigative or lawyer or administrative support positions during the year in order to A, catch up with our current backlog, B, make sure we don't ever have a backlog again, but things move smoothly, and C, to deal with what may be an additional increase in workload? And if so, how do we do that from a technical standpoint in putting the budget together? Is the line item we send to the legislature what the legislature deals with? That's what I think I remember. And then are we in effect giving ourselves this kind of flexibility, giving Carrie the flexibility, or how detailed would that plan, if the board approved it, how detailed would that plan need to be in the budget? I'm for giving Carrie flexibility because I think we've got to catch up with workload and we've got to anticipate workload.
Thank you, Commissioner. You know, I think anytime we start talking about staffing issues, there are usually some sensitivities downtown, particularly temporary staff. I think there's more flexibility, greater latitude, and particularly the types of things that you were talking about and that we know have been facing the commission regarding the electronic filing system. So I do believe that we're in a somewhat unpredictable situation of late because of the new constitutional amendment, because of the new electronic filing system, and some internal changes that we've had as well. A new executive director who is very focused on investigations and is already implementing some things internally to make improvements in the timeframes in which those are complete. So I think it's hard for us at this point to put a plan forward given the absence of a clear path ahead. Having said that, I think we are fortunate to be in the position where we've got carry and we do have carry forward funds and receptive leadership in the House and Senate that we can provide carry some flexibility, perhaps to touch base with me, touch base with the commission, perhaps, you know, not require a vote, or if you want, require a vote to see, okay, we may need a temporary position to deal with e-filing. We may seek a temporary investigator to catch up, or some legal assistance to catch up. Once we start talking about permanent positions, I think that's when we would need to become a little more formalized in what we're doing. But I think for the upcoming year, that would be an excellent approach to take.
Madam Chair, a final question, if I may. Then
Yeah.
in the context of this meeting, how would you like to structure, or how would the commission, if they agree, like to structure giving Carrie, with your approval, that kind of authority?
I would think that we would take up a vote to a motion to submit to the legislature a continuation budget with the authority for carry in consultation with House and Senate leadership to seek carry forward funds for temporary positions for those issues that are external to the commission that the commission must deal with, i.e. electronic filing and the new constitutional amendment and caseload backlog, to seek temporary staffing assistance. And someone can make that motion and we can discuss it and go from there.
Madam Chair, so that you have a motion on the floor, I'll be pleased to make the motion and then we can discuss it.
Very well. I
Chair
think
Carvajal to second.
very good. Okay, so our motion is to recommend to the legislature a continuation budget, also to provide carry the authority to have discussions with House and Senate before accessing carry forward funds for the purposes of increasing on a temporary basis staff for the needs of investigative workload, the implementation of the constitutional amendment, and e-filing. Is there questions on the motion or discussion on the motion? I'll take either.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Waldman.
Commissioner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm certainly supportive of the motion. I believe that's the way to go, but is there an itemized list or could you give us an itemized list of what previously the carry forward funds were used for? And is that list really something that we can count on moving forward that the monies can be used for?
Commissioner Waldman, I think in the handouts that Carrie provided, she has itemized some carry forward usages. They've been very, very minimal. And I think, as you can see, our carry forward budget has actually been pretty stable and pretty consistent and at a sizable amount for the past several years. It's actually increased a little bit each year, showing that we're in very good shape. But I think if you can see at the, well, let's see, that was the lobbyist trust fund. Apologize for that. In general revenue.
I don't know that I've gotten that document unless,
okay.
Are you looking at the one that says Executive Lobbyist Trust Fund fact sheet?
No, the one is the Commission on Ethics fact sheet. It looks exactly like that one. So I think you'll see that there was some software one year for $18,000. There was leave payout for $30,000. But essentially, we've not really tapped that carry forward budget. And we do pretty well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a little follow-up, and thank you for pointing me in the right direction of where I was supposed to be looking, because I wasn't there. We've had, and I guess I don't know whether it's probably not appropriate at this time because we have the motion on the floor, but in terms of utilizing it for compensation other than salaries, is there a way that we can do something like that, that we can try to utilize it as, I see we have it for drop program and everything like that, but are we able to do any type of bonuses?
Okay. Let me talk about a couple of things. First, carry forward by its very nature is non-recurring. Our carry forward, being somewhat consistent, is so non-recurring that it's almost recurring in a way because it shows up every year. Having said that, it should not be used for permanent salaries, either compensate increases or new hires, et cetera. Bonuses are the direct purview of the legislature, as are across the board pay increases. In fact, statutes prohibit agencies from providing across the board pay increases or bonuses absent authority from the legislature. And typically those types of things are things that they handle on a statewide basis. Having said that, Carrie again has the flexibility right now and has used it as we've had staff changes, we've had some promotions, that if she determines that she needs to bring on a hire or someone may be deserving of a merit increase or a retention increase. Most commonly, someone may wish to leave the commission for better pay elsewhere, but they really want to stay. So Carrie has the authority to provide a salary increase within existing budget. And I think that needs to continue. We need to have flexibility to provide certain employees pay increases for a variety of reasons. But across the board, or bonuses are really not our call. It is the legislature's call.
I have a question.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If we do continuation, and my experience in budgeting is we got money, but the legislature sometimes in their wisdom gave cost of living increases to all state employees. And as I look at what I'm seeing in the economy today, Last time I gassed up, it was $1 more this year than it was last year. I'm a little concerned about our employees. So my question is, we do continuation and the legislature decides to give all state employees a 3% across the board cost of living raise, which now should be about 8% across the board cost of living wage, because groceries have gone up, gas has gone up, everything has gone up. If we do if we have a continuation and the legislature adds those things in, that would be an addition to what we have here in our proposed budget to continue a continuation budget. Am I wrong or am I right? I'm
You're
just
both,
concerned about our people.
you are both wrong and right, mostly right, of course. Yeah, of course, if they decide to give state employees a raise, that is not in the continuation budget. But what the legislature does is provide a broad category for those raises, provides appropriation, and then those funds are distributed to each qualifying agency. It's called administered funds. And so they would recognize that agencies need the money to provide those raises. And typically they would provide those funds to the agencies, and I would believe we would be included. So for example, when Carrie said we received $11,000 this year from administered funds, it was because the legislature passed a minimum wage requirement that we had to implement. And there was an appropriation for that, and that appropriation was dispersed. It was calculated and dispersed, and that's why we received an additional $11,000 this year in administered funds. So no, our continuation budget does not include it, but we would expect to receive those funds from the legislature in the normal course of the dynamic budgeting process.
Thank you.
So we'd be taken care of,
Thank
we
you.
think, normally. Don't want to speak for the legislature.
Trust the legislature.
Yes.
Are there any other questions on the motion? Any other?
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
Madam-
Commissioner Gates, you're
I'm
recognized.
sorry, I yield.
I'm sorry, who else was?
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's me, Glenn. So
Commissioner Gill, yeah.
could you just recite the motion one more time?
The motion is for a continuation budget while providing Carrie the authority to, in consultation with the leadership in the House and Senate, to use our carry forward funds for the purposes of staff requirements in the areas of investigation, the implementation of the constitutional amendment, and the implementation of e-filing to temporary staff requirement increases for 22-23.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So knowing that this was noticed as a workshop, does that mean if this gets passed, it now goes to the full board for a full vote next week?
Um,
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I believe Caroline did research on that prior to this meeting, and I believe that we would not have to tee it up for the commission meeting. Caroline, correct me if I'm wrong. If we needed to tee it up there, we could, but I believe her research indicates that a vote here would suffice.
That is correct. This meeting has been noticed in the Florida Administrative Register in accordance with the provisions of the Administrative Procedures Act, in particular, Section 120.525. The opportunity for public comment was provided, although we were not taken up on that. Thus, it is not something that we have to consider at this meeting, but I did also reach out to Pat Gleason at the Attorney General's office and confirmed that a vote can be undertaken at this meeting as a quorum is present. And the APA does afford us to have that quorum present via electronic means, so long as it is reality, which it is. And so, yes, you are unfettered in your ability to vote. It does not need to be then later addressed, for example, at the October 22nd meeting as well.
Okay, because I think what Commissioner Gilzine may be referring to is that it was noticed as a workshop. So there may be the thought that a vote is not possible. So you're saying that we, even though noticed as a workshop, we can go ahead and take a vote today.
It was noticed as a meeting and workshop. It is a categorization under the administrative register that encompasses both.
You are very wise and clever. Any further discussion on the motion, clarifications, questions?
Yes, ma'am. May I be recognized?
Yes, please. You are.
Madam Chair, it was my hope and that the motion would include a statement that the executive director, with the approval of the chair, could then go forward with these budget adjustments. I think it's important that there be a connection to the commission for all the reasons that you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting.
Agreed, and I did not mean to omit that. I think that is important so that the chair, who will, I assume, communicate with the commission, is aware of what our executive director is asking downtown. So let me rephrase that we would approve a continuation budget, providing Carrie the authority, after consulting with the chair, to consult with leadership of the House and Senate to access carry forward funds for temporary staffing for the purposes of the constitutional amendment, investigative backlog, and e-filing. Did I get it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. And thank you for bringing that up. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Show the motion approved. Are there any other matters that you would like to discuss regarding the budget?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Yates?
this relates directly to the budget because it relates to workload. I had the privilege of meeting with Senate leadership over the last couple of days. And they advised me that they are working with the House on implementation language for the second part of Amendment 12, which is the lobby ban. And the reason why this relates to workload is that, frankly, to my surprise, but this is certainly not inappropriate, the House is preparing a first draft, and they are working now on definitions. It was surprising to me that they were working on definitions, but they were defining what is lobbying. Well, that's it. That's already pretty clear in the constitutional language, but Don Rubottom, Madam Chair, is working on this, and you know, he's a man of I have great respect for him. He is a man of great detail, and so he's working on definitions of lobbying, of all of the other terms that fall into the lobby ban section of Amendment 12. And then secondarily, they're working on penalties. And the conversation that I had with Senate leadership pertaining to workload is that there are at least 3 pathways that are under consideration, at least by the Senate. One is that lobby ban complaints would be referred to the Ethics Commission, and we would handle them like we handle everything else. And the penalty would be that we would fine them if they were found in violation, and you know, recommend a sanction. A second thought is that violation of the lobby bans would simply be deemed in statute a criminal offense of some sort, which would take us out of it entirely. Whereas the first option would put us into it entirely. The third option is that complaints as to the lobby ban would be referred to us. We would be responsible for investigation and finding probable cause and providing a hearing and all of the things that we typically do. And assessing the penalties that are within our statutory authority. And then the matter either would or could be referred for criminal prosecution. So at least those three pathways are being discussed on the Senate side. The House is working on a first draft, and they're going to bounce it to the Senate, and we go from there. I had a very welcoming reception in Senate leadership about working with them on this issue. I believe that the Senate President wants to do what the commission wants, which is to have an aggressive approach to violations of the lobby ban. I also passed along, of course, all of the other recommendations of the commission with respect to legislative changes. I think it's fair to say they were met with mild interest. And the one that evoked conversation was the increase in penalties. And that evoked some, what I would consider supportive conversation. I just wanted to report that because I think it has a budgetary impact. Depending upon which way the legislature may go, we may find ourselves with a bunch more work.
Yes, and thank you for that report, Commissioner. And I believe you're right. Depending on that direction could have significant impact to the commission. I'm happy to reach out to Dawn and see what, inquire what their explorations are looking like. Definitely, that's something that we need to keep our eyes on and stay engaged with. So thank you so much for doing that and for reporting your findings back to us.
And Madam Chair, I just wanted the commission, for the record, to know that I had the meeting with the Senate leadership with the permission of and at the request of the chair.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question of Commissioner Gates, please?
Of course.
So are part of the discussions on a prohibition on future lobbying or suspension of lobbying privileges, or is it just monetary? Because if it's just monetary, you're going to find that, at least I think you're going to find that it's a lot more lucrative to lobby and not do it properly than to, better to pay the fine and keep working.
Madam Chair.
You're recognized.
Thank you, ma'am. You're absolutely right. In fact, one lobbyist said to me that he would like to simply post a $50,000 or $100,000 amount with the commission and simply be drawn down each time that he uses somebody in his lobby firm that's subject to the lobby ban. I think you're right. And I think those matters are part of the conversation. We need to be in this conversation because, we're the ones who sort of catch the ball when it's thrown. We have to deal with the bad actors and with the complaints. So that's why I'm so glad we've got former members, not me, but the other former members, including, and obviously our chair, Commissioner Lesnoff, who knows the legislature awfully well. We've got to be involved in this process to make sure that it's not passed off in some kind of rhetorically interesting and impressive way, but means nothing. But at the same time, something, that we've got to have a solution here that's practical, that can be worked with. So yes, sir, that's under consideration. That topic has been discussed. And I discussed it directly with the Senate President. And we just need to be very involved. I think the proper next step is for our chair to talk with Don Rubottom, the staff member of the staff director for the House Committee on Ethics and Public Integrity, because Rubottom is going to present his approach or recommendations to House leadership probably sometime next week. So timing is right.
Madam Chair, is that something that we should authorize as a body that, or is that not anything that needs to be done?
Madam
I
Chair?
believe at your last meeting, which that'll also teach me a lesson not to show up. Thank
Now
you.
I remember, you're right. Good job.
I think you did deputize myself and the vice chair to go forth and lobby. I did appreciate communicating with Commissioner Gates regarding lobbying efforts of other members of the commission. So although I encourage that, I would ask that you reach out to do that. And again, Commissioner Gates, I thank you so much for taking initiative and having those conversations. And we certainly need to follow up, particularly if those penalties are going to involve actions of the commission. So I think your recommendations are wise. Carrie, I see you're
Just
chomping.
Briefly, Madam Chair, I just want to let everyone know we do have an item on the regularly scheduled commission meeting for a legislative update where we'll be able to have robust conversation at that meeting. Caroline and I did meet with Don Rubottom last week. She was introduced to him for the first time. We had a robust discussion about ethics and the legislative process. And of course, we offered, any assistance that they might have or any questions they might have for us as staff. We're more than happy to assist with that. And we are meeting with Don Roberts, his counterpart in the Senate tomorrow morning. So we'll look forward to that discussion at the commission meeting.
Very good. I predict Caroline and Mr. Rubottom are going to get along famously. And I don't know if that was also a cue to tell us not to get too far astray from our agenda. I'm going to take it as such and get us back on course here. Are there any other items to discuss with respect to the budget? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I've got it. Motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned, and thank you so much for your participation. And thank you, Carrie and Caroline.
Thank you all. Thank you all
Bye-bye.
very much for your
Bye-bye.
guidance.